The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Terra Turas. I'm Michael Peterson. I'm over here in the upper right-hand corner. In the upper left-hand corner is our brand new panel member, Tammy Manzo. She is an astrologer. Again, down on the bottom left-hand corner is Reverend Pat Beers. And joining us from kind of off the beaten track, taking some time out to help work on our show this evening, again, is Malcolm Spears. How is everybody doing this evening?
Great. Good.
Doing good.
Tammy, it's awesome to have you on the show more as a regular kind of person. You've been on the show before as we've been talking about astrology, but it's nice to have you on in the group. And as we go along, we're all going to be shuffling through, So as we grow, people on the Facebook chat, soon to be on the YouTube chat, and everybody in the podcast, you'll be hearing from different people on a rotating weekly basis. So it's going to be a little bit more diverse as we go along. Tammy, if you would, for the people that have not seen you before, can you take a moment and tell us about yourself and what you do?
Oh, yeah, I've been studying astrology, many past lives, of course. This lifetime since I was 12, kind of hiding it under the table because we were raised Catholic, and Catholic religion didn't like astrology. So this was back in the 70s before computers and the days we had to, chart our own, make our own charts. And, I've just been studying and myself and friends and clients for years and years. So the things that you see in the chart and the timing, it just blows your mind. And yet, it shouldn't blow your mind, but it still does, the timing and the things that show up with energy. It's just fabulous, and it's a never-ending study.
I can kind of imagine that. I think we're all kind of in a similar boat. Just when we think we can coast for a few minutes, we always find something new. It's like, oh, I didn't know about that. And, oh, I didn't know about that. I'm glad to see everybody starting to join us in the chat room this evening. I really appreciate that. Again, in the chat room, and I know that Shella will make a post here a little bit later on. For the people, at the last quarter part of our show, we take the time to take a question from the audience in the chat room. And if you'd like to participate in that, just put the letter X and the number 1 by your name in the chat room. That way we can see who would like to participate this evening. And again, Shirley will make a post about that later on. Malcolm, tell me, sir, if you would, where are you? You're in Vermont, and you're just...
I'm 6 feet away from the lake at Island Pond, Vermont.
Wow.
And it is absolutely gorgeous here, but we've been having thunder showers for the last hour or two, so we kind of got caught setting up here a bit in the rain.
Wow.
But what would camping be without having to set up in the rain?
Yep. That's about it, too. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and taking a break from what you've got going on there. To be able to join us for the show this evening. And I noticed everybody popping into the chat room is Jared.
Well, hi, Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Hello, Jared.
So everybody's watching you, Jared. We see you. Well, folks, this evening we wanted to take a few minutes. Tammy is going to take a few minutes and talk about Eclipse and the things that are coming up through the... Is it through the month of July, Tammy?
Yes, there's 2 in July, and then there'll be a last one at the end of the year, right after Christmas.
Okay, so we're going to have Tammy talk about the eclipse that is coming up and the energy from that and how it might affect people. And then we're going to take a look at how it affects us as readers as well. And it's a grand kind of assortment this evening because Pat, that works more as a medium, I'm curious to see if this affects her as a medium, and we'll talk to her. And Malcolm. I have Jared sitting here, and he's typing. That's why my brain. Malcolm works as a healer, and I'm really curious to know when we get to him how it affects what is happening as a healing kind of thing. So we're going to be talking about this topic. We're going to take a good look at it. But first, if you would, Tammy, talk to us about the eclipse that is coming up.
Okay, so the first eclipse is a total solar eclipse on July 2nd, and they come in pairs. The solar comes, and then the lunar comes about 2 weeks later. And the solar eclipse is when the sun and the moon are together, and the lunar is when the sun and the moon are opposite each other. So the total, a solar eclipse is kind of like a supercharged new moon, and the lunar eclipse is like a supercharged full moon. And it has that energy where it just kind of, it hangs around longer than the traditional full moon or new moon would. And the way I see it in a chart, it's like a big energy ball that just kind of hangs out around that area. So the solar eclipse will come at 10 degrees of Cancer. So everybody has Cancer in their charts, but the people that are Cancer sun signs are going to see something really strong coming in. The solar eclipse moves us forward, kind of shakes us up and shakes off old things and brings in new beginnings. So it's like playing Monopoly. You pick up the card, go directly to Park Place,
Mm-hmm.
and you jump right ahead of everybody. So it's a good time to put your intentions out there, set some new goals. You're going to be moving forward. And the lunar eclipse is something that the soul wants to release. It's clearing away some old energy. It's clearing away some old blockages. It's something that the soul is ready to let go of. That falls at 24 degrees Capricorn. The interesting thing about the solar eclipse is 10 degrees Cancer. The United States chart is Cancer sun sign. So this is some big things happening for the United States. We're going to have some big shifts and changes, some big advancements happening, some moving forward. So have any of you guys been tapping into that already? Have you been thinking about some big things happening for America? Or
Been feeling something coming, but don't know what it is. It's just like.
Yeah, I've been much in the same way. It is that feeling that a push is about to happen, and for me, typically it makes me antsy, simply because I'm the Gemini, but I'm a guy and I'm set in my ways, and I don't like things that come and push me around. So I'm like, I get antsy, I get irritated. Shelley tells me that I might want to eat a Snickers bar, so I'm not a diva or something,
But you're right, Michael. Each one of us is going to be asked to shift and change something. We're going to, like you said, we're creatures of habit. We love to do the things that we love to do. We've worked hard to get to this space, and no, what's going to happen? There's now a big energy attunement coming, and we're going to be maybe having to let go of some of that stuff. Or, you even have to let go of some good things so that something even better can come. And it's hard to let go of good things. It's easy to let go of junk you don't want. We'd be letting go of that as well, but we may have to, choose between two great options. One's going to be better, but we have to let something else go.
Tammy, can I ask you something? Does this affect animals? All my friends and I have just the one dog now. The animals are like super clingy. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness. Like having a baby going through that separation anxiety.
And you're exactly right, because Cancer, the energy of Cancer is home and family, right? And it's like how you nurture yourself and how you want to be with the family and how you want nurturing from them, and you want that, that energy. So yeah, it's about home and family.
Go ahead, Pat.
I said thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is this something that is going to, I don't want to say affect everybody differently, because of course it will, but are there the general kinds of things that people should be watching out for or should be aware of?
Well, when you look at the two together as a set, we've got the solar eclipse in Cancer, and then the opposing side is Capricorn. It's Cancer is the family, and Capricorn is the authority, and who's in charge. So between the whole month of July, there's going to be maybe some shifts in family dynamics. Who's in charge? What's the pecking order in the family? who controls the family? Does somebody want to move out of the house? Is it time for somebody else to go on and, break free of the family and make their own, house? It's just going to depend what you're putting into it right now. But it's that theme of home and family versus our own authority level. Capricorn energy is us raising to the level of our own authority. And it's also, authority in the outside world. Like, who has authority over us? Governments, big business. Capricorn energy is about our reputations, how we're seen out in the world. So there's going to be some shifts and changes in, maybe people's jobs, people that...
Okay, I'm going to ask you an odd one.
What they're supposed to be doing are going to kind of...
I'm going to ask you an odd question. Hey, when you say people that have authority over us, what about how this might affect not only ourselves but our bond or relationship with our significant other?
Yeah, that would come under the home and family, like that Cancer nurturing. But there's that Capricorn is who wears the pants in the family. You know what I mean? Like, who's always in charge, who makes the decisions, things like that. But the interesting thing about the lunar eclipse in Capricorn, that's going to be conjunct Pluto. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of secrets and things that are buried, stuff is going to start coming out. Things that are hidden. People in authority that have secrets and things to hide and things that they have not been using their power wisely. They've got power over people in their department or constituents or something. Things are going to show up. That moon is going to eliminate what's going on. So we're going to see some people like falling from grace. Some karma is going to start coming out. So have you guys tapped into any of that yet as well?
I have been saying that for months now. What is hidden will be revealed, and you're going to get some surprises here. And don't be surprised to find out that someone you put on that big pedestal, maybe not quite so high anymore.
Exactly. And this is when it's coming. This is when it's coming. Because everything shows up in its time. We've seen stuff that's been going on for a long time, and we're powerless. We can't do anything about it. We're just waiting. The timing. There's one thing that astrology will show you is timing for everything, divine timing, and this is timing. Boy, it's big. So it could be explosive. There's going to be a lot of people falling down from grace. A lot of karma coming out.
Wow. Okay, now I'm going to switch a little bit over because I'm curious to see. Malcolm, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
In the periods of times like this where there is an eclipse and that has that kind of energy, because it's not the energy that you would typically associate with your everyday kind of thing, how does that affect you both as a healer and as a reader? Do you notice that there are things that are odd or off, or is it like things become supercharged on your side?
It becomes a little more supercharged because the way I perceive it is it's it's a chaotic time, so anything can happen, and it's out of our control. So it tends to make people feel nervous, and I get more anxious calls during these kind of times than I do otherwise. But for myself, it's just like you know it's coming. You just have to sit and be patient and not be too attached to it. Because I don't need to go for the ride, because a lot of it can be really chaotic.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know. I take a step back from it, but it's an interesting mix of chaos and this big spotlight. This is kind of what Tammy was talking about. Secrets will be revealed, and the truth always comes out.
I think more people are afraid of that than anything,
Yeah.
What's that, Pat?
I agree, and I'm often telling impatience. Is anybody else seeing the impatience in people? Holy Toledo, especially driving and whatnot. And they tell, in time, on time, ahead of time, all the time, but God's in the universe's time, not particularly our time. And I'm just as bad as everyone else, and they don't believe. I go, oh yeah, it's just one of them things.
Malcolm, do you ever shy away from, if you know there's going to be a serious eclipse or anything, have you ever shied away from or said, let's move a healing session from that day to like a few days before or a few days after? Or do you just go ahead and conduct things as you normally would?
I just go ahead and I go with the clients who call. And, you know, most people are really not aware of what's going on in the astral world with the planets and so forth. So I just look at it as their specific subconscious timing, saying that they want to work on whatever issue it is during this time. So I'm always very open to that.
And that
so
makes
I just go with it.
You just go with the flow. It makes it interesting because there are times that I know all of us will pay attention to, just like bumping into Mercury Retrograde. When Mercury Retrograde comes around, I think all of us will go and hide under a bushel basket or crawl into a hole for the first couple of days. You know, you try just to survive while that transition is happening. So I didn't know if this would play or have an effect in what you do or how you do it. Pat, I'm going to ask you the same thing. In working as a medium, but also working as a reader, and I know that you've been out at fairs and spirit circles, does it have a major impact on you more as a medium or as a reader, or does it, like Malcolm, does it supercharge things?
Yeah, it makes me, it doesn't have as much as impact on me as I think it has on the people that I'm dealing with. You know, I if I get this feeling, oh boy, here we go, then I know I'm going to have somebody that's chewing nails and spitting tacks, or just scared to death that they're drowning, or they go off the deep end no matter what the emotion is. They're head over heels in love, they're mad at somebody, they're scared to death, they're whatever, just magnify it by 10, and that's usually how people are right now. And I just try to back up and say, now wait, take a deep breath. You know, this happens all the time. Just be quiet if you can, be patient, step back and look at it as though your best friend is in this situation. Are you going to tell them to go jump off the high dive? You're going to say, maybe the low dive's better today. You know, so just try to bring them back to reality instead of the space that they're in right at this particular moment.
Have you ever noticed during an eclipse or having that energy around, working as a medium, if it makes things stronger, do people on the other side that have passed, do you find yourself having more spiritual connection? You know, instead of talking to people in a 10-foot radius, now you're talking to people in a 2-block radius.
Right. Yeah, and I find that people, well, they've never come through before. I have no idea who you're talking about. And then they'll go and talk to someone in the family, and they'll go, oh my gosh, that was so-and-so, you know. So there's a lot of, I guess we'll call it the awakening time, where they're more aware. Oh my gosh, I can tell my dog, my cat's acting funny, or I'm feeling like I'm being watched. Mm-hmm. And they're more aware than they are most of the time. I mean, it's like, you can forget that little phase of light that's passing by, or that shadow you thought you saw. I mean, now it's like there is something there. I don't understand. Should I be terrified, or should I just say, say hi? Do you have a message for me? Are you of the light? You know.
And that's an interesting point coming from your side, working at the way that you do. And this is what I like about our group, because we are all focused in the same kinds of things, but because of what we do, we come at things from a very different perspective of things. When I take a look at things, I'm more to a point now where, because I work with people across a wide swath of countries, watching this energy bumping into people and watching it affect them, and watching how it might go between here and like England, or if you get all the way over down in Australia and things like this, it impacts people differently. And especially, I think, and I'll ask Tammy, but it seems to impact people differently in the northern and southern hemisphere, depending upon the time of year, It's like now we're in the middle of summer here in the United States, and Australia is really beginning to begin their winter time. So it to me, I see this difference. Tammy, does it affect a hemisphere because of the pole of the planet?
You're onto something with that. Some astrologer, since this is such like an etheric energy, there's really no definitive, rules about it. But a lot of astrologers will say it's, the more full that the eclipse is, the more total it is. So not every solar eclipse is total. Mm-hmm. There's partial ones all the time. Same with the lunar. This one that's coming up here is a partial lunar, but we've had total lunar ones before, and that energy is stronger. And then some astrologers will say as well, there's a path where that eclipse will be seen. And this the one coming up in July 2nd, we won't be able to see it. It's down south, like you said, Argentina and Brazil. We're not going to be able to see that total solar up here. So a lot of astrologers say it's going to be stronger where that's actually crossing over the Earth where those people can see it. That makes sense? Is that answering your question?
Oh, it does. That was kind of like a curiosity question. Because just like when the eclipse, or when we have, oh Lord, what's the other one that comes across? That's horrible. See, my brain just absolutely.
Eclipse.
I'm sorry?
You mean the solar or the lunar?
Yeah.
Eclipse?
To where, what was it? The last one just happened not long ago, and it covered a big swath of the United States, to where people were running outside and taking a look, and you've got to have the solar glasses to be able to look at things.
Yeah, that was like last summer, I think, right? That was a solar, I think that was a big solar one. Yeah, and the United States saw it, and it was really weird. I went outside, experienced that energy, and it felt weird to me.
Yeah.
It felt really weird. The sun seemed, even the quality of the light was different. It was quite odd.
It was. My in-laws were here. Shelley's mom and dad were here during that time. And Mel reads tarot, and he's really good at it. And we stepped outside to take a look at this because I had some heavy welder's glasses, so I was able to look at that. But stepping outside from the home, to me, felt odd. Yeah. And when I watched to see how Mel picked it up, and he came on and he shivered. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's not just me, But I was wondering, because as you see the solar eclipse and it creates the dark spot on the Earth, if you take a look at the pictures that they do, does an eclipse focus? And I know that you're trying to answer that, but does it really focus its energy more, and then does it dissipate as it radiates, or does it just hit the entire Earth like all at one time? I don't know if that's a fair question or not.
Well, it's just not every part of the world is going to be able to see it. So it's almost like that coloring of the sun is not going to be seen everywhere. So in my mind, they're just not going to get it as strongly. But everybody's going to get it in their charts. No matter where, everybody's going to get this Cancer energy in the chart somewhere, no matter where, if you can see that solar eclipse or not.
Right.
So that's almost like working with kind of like an energy that I'm not going to be able to feel, but when I see someone's chart and I can see the eclipses are coming up, then I'll work that into the reading, like, wow, be ready for some big shifts and changes for quite a while afterwards.
Awesome. Pat, I'm going to switch back to you for a second there, dear, because I'm curious. When you have traveled to any of the destinations that you've gone to, and I want to almost say spiritual meccas, like Lilydale or Chesterfield or the one that's in Florida or other spiritual sites. Have you ever noticed an uptick in overall activity around you in people, even if they aren't aware, when you get to a place like that?
I think so. Like Lilydale and Chesterfield, even Sedona, Arizona. I mean, each one has their own vibration of energy. Like my husband was in the last stages of cancer, and I took him to Sedona. He had no pain. He saw spirit more out there than he did here. And it just, and that was a lot of Native American history there, you know, with the Anasazi and whatnot. And like when I'm at Chesterfield, it's an entirely different feeling from Lilydale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and then I think it has to do with probably the times that we're there and what's going on. But I do. In Casadega, I have not been to Casadega in Florida. That's one of my places I want to go. And I have friends that live very near there, and they keep saying, come on down. Well, it sounds great, but trying to get there and get the timing to work is often my problem. But, yeah, I do believe, and I think Gettysburg, you know what I mean? It's just depending on the locale you're going and what's happened there over a period of time. Whether you know about it or not, if you're sensitive, you're going to feel it. And that's what cracks me up. It's like, you know, Melody's been into this work for a long time too, and she does astrology and whatnot. But when we were in Gettysburg, and her friend had come with her daughter, and her daughter was not aware that she was like a natural medium or anything. And she's hearing these little kids playing, and she's seeing things, and it's just interesting because those places, I think, or I feel, hold so much energy in themselves that when we're there, we can't help but notice. We probably notice it more than the general public, but, you know, if you go with friends who aren't necessarily tuned into this, they'll say, wow, you know, it really feels strange, or you know, and it's just that they're feeling it and they don't understand why they're feeling it. But I think it's just what's built up into the area.
Malcolm, I'm going to ask you a really odd question right now. Because you live in Canada, have you ever noticed almost like a polarity shift, but have you ever noticed a change, experiencing an eclipse in Canada where you live, versus if you were down in Florida or at Virginia Beach, or if you had been traveling southern side? Have you ever noticed a difference, a change in the energetic of it?
No, I look at it as, you know how like the moon will pull the tides and the water level? Well, it's very much the same thing with the energy level. So when you're getting an eclipse, you're getting that extra bang that goes with it. And I really can't speak. I've never actually been elsewhere when there's an eclipse that happened. But in terms of, no, I don't really notice a big difference. Like, you know, from like Virginia Beach, for example, from Montreal, it's only like, you know, a day and a half drive. So I really didn't notice a difference at all from that. Maybe if it was farther, I would more.
I was just curious because I know that you're decently traveled in where you go, you know, and it's just me. The three of us are in Ohio. Tammy is up in Sandusky area. Pat is over in
Akron.
Thank you. I almost said Canton. I'm like, that's not right.
I'm halfway in between both, so yeah, you're close.
You know, and then I'm all the way over closer to the Pennsylvania border, but we're all trapped in Ohio. You know, so I was curious to see if you noticed anything, because you're a pretty healthy, decent way further north than any of us are. It's just curiosity about that. All right, folks, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a few minutes just to have an interlude, take one last look at Divine Awakenings, and then when we come back, we're going to talk just a little bit more about eclipses, and then we've got a few other things that I want to mention. As Shelley had pointed out in the chat room, our last quarter hour we take a question from anybody that's in the chat room, and if you want to participate in that, put an X and a 1 by your name. That way we can know that you're interested, and we'll select somebody at random about that. Well, we'll be right back. Divine Awakenings, New Age Emporium, and Healing Art Shop. It's the largest locally owned and operated metaphysical retailer in the Sandusky, Ohio Tri-County area. Serving the Firelands region since April of 2014, they're pleased to offer a space that is welcoming, relaxing, and open to everyone. In the Emporium, you will find a variety of unique gifts, special events and services, as well as classes and workshops to soothe your mind, body, and spirit. If you're in the Sandusky, Ohio area, look for Divine Awakenings at 1006 Tiffin Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio. Their phone number is 419-502-9137, and you can find them on Facebook at /Divine Awakenings LLC. We get together online once a week and we chat, and you would think that we've known each other forever, but we start chatting and we start laughing and giggling, and I almost miss the point of coming back. But Pat has a couple of actually very serious good questions that she's going to ask Tammy. She asked it at the break, and I'm like, no, just hold on a second. So, Pat, go ahead and ask her what you're doing here.
My first question was about dream state. I mean, so many people are coming to me and going, "Oh my gosh, these dreams, blah 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 blah." So, do the eclipses? See, for me, it's the full moons. I don't notice the eclipses, I guess, because they're so infrequent. But does that affect our dreams?
It could, depending on if you're a person that has dreams regularly. But I think what you might be hearing is the Neptune has just turned retrograde. It went retrograde on June 21st with the solstice. And, Neptune is that's our subconscious, that rules our subconscious. So I feel like that's a lot of healing coming up for people in dream time. And that'll be retrograde until end of November of this year. That's a long time for it to be retrograde. But that's that spiritual aspect of us, where we transcend everyday life. That's that energy. So, dreams.
Okay, and my second question was, poor Malcolm, he's got bugs up here, mosquitoes.
Sorry about that, folks. I've been trying to restrain that swatting motion,
I hate mosquitoes. Ugh.
I don't know if these guys were there, but I went to Virginia Beach for 14 years, so I was often there. The full moons were phenomenal over the ocean, and sometimes they were very, very powerful. Yeah. So does the water, being near a large body of water, also affect the energy or the impact, if you will, of...
Oh yeah, because water, is a carrier for energy, big time. Okay. Yeah, big time.
So it amplify it then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now this would be an interesting kind of thing. If people were around, you say the water amplifies things. What about moving water, waterfalls? And I know that it might be an odd question, but would that actually change in effect or change how things are?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of healing through energies, like where I've been at waterfalls, and that's just a naturally clearing. That just clears old stuck energy out, right? Emotional, especially emotional stuff, because water in astrology is the emotional element of us. So yeah, big time. When you're with rushing water, that just like carries everything away.
That's an interesting idea as well. We'll probably have to explore that at a different point as well. All right, I'm going to take a few minutes as we go around. I'm just going to kind of go around. Somebody, I think it was Jared and I were talking, that it looks like we're playing Hollywood Squares. And it makes me laugh every time I think about that. But I'm just going to kind of go clockwise as we go around, or counterclockwise. Tammy, I'll start with you. Is there something in particular that you would tell people from an astrologer standpoint of how they might conduct or what they might do during an eclipse energy? Things they might, should do, don't do?
Yeah. The big thing is, change is the one constant that we have in this world. And they're going to get through the eclipse season the least. When they try to resist change, it's going to be harder for them. So they will sail through it if they just are willing to let things go. Just let it go, because it's all for our highest good. We're all spiraling up to the next level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Eclipses help us do that. It helps mankind, evolve over time, and each one of us evolve individually. So we need these eclipses. These eclipses here are going to show us something about where in our authority level, where are we not, running our own lives. And what can we do about our family? What does the family unit need right now? And that's something we need to all look at inside ourselves and fix or add to or change.
Okay.
So they need to go with the flow.
Pat, I'm going to ask you the same thing. In all of your experience, is there things that you would tell people to either pay more attention to or do something differently during an eclipse point?
As I tell them all the time, because I'm unfortunately not always aware of the eclipses or the full moons or whatever, but I find full moons really affect people, as do the eclipses. I tell them, please be patient. If you're panicking, step back and look, because if you start fearing things, you're drawing to you the very things you do not want. You're saying, oh my gosh, and the universe goes, well, this must be what they want. This is all they're talking about. So I tell them, please just kind of take a deep breath, usually 3 of them, and just back up a little bit, and just please be patient. Take notes. If you keep seeing the same things, you keep seeing the same animals, you keep feeling the same thing, you're going to notice after a little bit that it's not a coincidence. It's like, hey, somebody's going, yo, how are you in there? Pay attention, so that would be the thing I try to tell people.
Fantastic. Malcolm, I'm going to ask you the same thing, sir. In the things that you do, what would be some of the advice that you would give to people at this point for an eclipse?
For an eclipse, I think mirroring some stuff that Pat said is stay out of fear. The Buddhists actually look at times of chaos as being incredibly beneficial, because we don't let go of the known very easily. We don't get out of our ruts very easily. So when there's when there's a very chaotic situation, it's an incredible time for growth. So if we look at it that way, because I've run into people, and I've fallen into this one a few times myself. I had an astrologer that put me into fear for like a year with all kinds of dire projections. I just realized, okay, here's this particular flavor. What can you do with it? And I think the fear thing gets extremely. It hurts a lot of people when when the people are pumping up the fear. It sells a lot because everybody's like, oh, what's that? But no, I just look at it as it's an opportunity to change, just an opportunity to look at things. And we were talking. Tammy was talking about one following the other. I don't know which order it is, but I mean, basically, you have the new moon where everything is pure potential, and you set the intention, or you have the full moon, which is everything is illuminated, and that you can see incredibly clearly. In the new moon, you don't see anything. You know, you're just having to go on faith. But in the full, you see it all. So I don't know if it's a chicken and egg thing, which comes first in timing, but it gives us a real cycle to look at our own truth and look at our own shadows very clearly. And it's just an absolute beautiful time for growth.
Now, I'm going to follow up with something because you mentioned it, and I want people to have a little bit of a better understanding. You mentioned that when things are chaotic, or that there is chaos seeming abounding in a person's life, that it's actually a very beneficial thing. Can you give me a short reason or tell me a little bit why? Why is that so?
Because it gets you out of your normal way of thinking. We get stuck. Everybody gets stuck. I think I'm the first one to tell you I'm stubborn as hell. But no, we get stuck in whatever our thinking is, actually it's more of our beliefs. We get stuck on certain beliefs about us, about other people, about the situations around us. And what the chaos does is it lets us let that go. It gives us that space because it just doesn't work anymore. And this can give us an incredible freedom and to release stuff that is really tying us down. And that's really how I look at it.
Interesting. It's just when you mentioned that, and I have a very similar kind of thing that I look at when people talk about chaos or chaos theory and growth. But I wanted people to try to understand why. Because anytime that most people say chaos, people recoil. They're like, it's chaotic, that's bad. No, chaotic's not bad, folks. But I was just curious.
No, it's usually not very much fun. People... Because when you smile and going, oh, that's great, some people are not always very receptive to that point of view.
Yeah.
But no, it's not fun. It's always, it's almost always a big challenge. But it's where we get the most growth.
I would agree. Yeah. In from my end, when we start looking at, and like Pat, I'm not always aware of when eclipse is going to happen, when new moons. I try to pay attention. But it's like, for me to let it sink in that's asking too much sometimes. But when people are asking about it, I'll tell them, I'll say, look, there are a couple of things that you want to try to do. Slow down a little bit, because that extra oomph in energy tends to get people to go overboard. They feel it, they get excited, they will do something that they might not typically do. Or if they are in midst of conversation, some things, and this is what Pat had said, the truth comes out. Some things come out, or some things are said in conversation simply because everybody's energized about something. But I used to look and watch this happen in the corporate world, where it's coming, and if you watched, everybody would start getting antsy and more talkative and more bustling going around. And for me, I would just sit at my desk and hide. I wouldn't go anywhere. Because for me, at that point, being an empath, I don't want to go running into a bunch of other people's angst or stuff, and it becomes very magnified. All right, we are going to switch over real quick. Now, here's an oddity for this evening, believe it or not. We have not had anybody turn around and put an X1 by their name. So, what I would like to do to close our show out for the evening, if you feel comfortable enough, can you give people a small, short insight, is the way that I'll put it, as to how they might better conduct themselves coming up through the week? Is there anything that you might warn them about coming up through the week? And Tammy, I'll start with you. And she's like, oh God, really?
No, it's just like what we all talked about. I think everybody kind of knows what's not working for them. You know, they do kind of know, like Malcolm says, they get stuck in ruts and they're trying to like paddle upstream and they're not getting anywhere. They kind of know where they're stuck, and you know, if they're honest, they kind of know this stuff needs to shift and change, and these eclipses are just going to bring them that energy where, you know, okay, it is going to maybe put another obstacle in their way so that they don't keep trying the same way over and over again. That door will finally shut and they'll try something different. So they just have to kind of, like Pat said, slow down, breathe, be aware of what's going on, and take the step, make the adjustments. You know, it's nothing bad's going to happen. The only time something bad can happen to you is if you hold on to the old stuff and you keep holding on. You know, then the universe is really going to kind of, you know, make it a little more difficult for you. But just breathe, go with the flow. I mean, I think we all kind of know where we need to make the adjustments, and just give yourself that permission to try something new.
I'm going to ask you, because you mentioned it, what, from an astrological side and view, and I know that you work as a reader, you work as a healer, your main focus is astrology, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, healing, I use astrology to heal as well, so
Okay.
if I can get a hold of their chart, yeah, use them together.
You mentioned holding on to things from the past.
Yeah.
From your viewpoint, what happens when somebody does that too much? Like they live in the past. They talk about things from the past. They relive things that happened 2 years, 5 years.
Oh, yeah, they just recreate it. They're creating it over and over again. Like Pat said, the universe says, oh, gee, this is all they talk about, so let's give it that. You know, it's a law of attraction. So if somebody just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, you know, the same thing happens again, over and over again, you know? So, yeah, they just have to, they need this energy to kind of break that up a little bit. Like, okay, it's a broken record. It's a broken record off. Try something.
I was curious because as you mentioned these things, the comical side of me comes and goes, oh, really? Okay. Well, what does that mean? So just poke that in for a minute. Pat?
Yes, sir.
What would you give advice for people through this upcoming next week? Is there something that you would tell them kind of in particular or more in a generalistic?
What the thought that just came to me was be alert, pay attention. You know, like today, young man on a motorcycle with a young gal behind him cut off 3 cars, and when we came to a stoplight, he goes up to the last car that he cut off. He went up to the window and banged on it and is yelling at this guy, and I'm like, ay, pay attention. He didn't do it once, he did it 3 times. These people were driving along, minding their own business, and here he comes, boom. And I thought, oh my God. And there have been, in our area in the past week, there have probably been 5 or 6 people killed on motorcycles.
Oh.
And look at that accident in someplace in New England where they hit 7. I mean, pay attention. I never worried about my kids driving. I always worried about the people around them. So I'm trying to get people to take that attitude. Be cautious. Slow down. Pay attention to what's going on around you. And like I said, if the same things keep coming up over and over, what's my message here? There's got to be something in here I'm not paying attention to because this keeps coming up.
Yep. And that's a really good point, especially for people while you are out and about, moving about. It's always best. Pay attention to your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm, I'm going to ask you the same thing, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit of a different question right along with it. What would you tell people more as a general? Is there anything that you would want to make them aware of through the upcoming week?
Well, what I would really encourage people to do is meditate, slow your thinking down, and start being a whole lot more aware, as Pat was saying, be alert. Because if you step back just enough, you're no longer feeling like you're in the first car on the mega scary roller coaster, right? You can slow it down to the point where you are aware of what's going on and you're not driven by it, but you're going with it, and there's a huge difference. If you're ultimately really going with the flow with awareness, can take you into some really wonderful places. It's the fear factor that gets people. So the more aware, the more serene you can be. Can almost hear Lynn laughing right now. The more serene you can be in these kind of times, the better. And so it doesn't drive. Instead of it riding you, you ride it, and that's really the big difference. So if you can make it work for you, it all becomes a fabulous challenge and an opportunity for growth.
Now, here is my odd question. Because
Okay.
you've worked with people, you have helped people grow, you have conducted classes and, basically really taught people how to use their gifts and their talents and things like this. As Tammy had mentioned, that people hold on to things and hold on to the past, and they're doomed, for lack of better words, that they recreate it all the time. Mm-hmm. What happens when a person does not retain much of the past, that they live more in the now with only a slight focus going into the future? Like if they're just energetically living in the day, in the moment, so to speak. How does that affect people?
They carry a whole lot less baggage. You're not worried to what happened to you with your grade 7 teacher, who gave you dealt out some kind of corporal punishment. I mean, people play all these scripts in their heart and their heads like all the time. So the more in the present that you are, the less of this junk you carry around with you. So somebody who's really in the moment, I'd say the image of the Fool from the tarot card. Divinely protected, mm-hmm. and just completely free.
That's an interesting kind of way to look at it, too, because I know many people try to say, that, try to live in the moment, be in the present. And it's difficult for a lot of people, simply because they have so many attachments from the past, mm-hmm. where they are so worried about what they are supposed to be doing.
Well, this is something I work a lot with. Like you're probably aware, like they're doing the result system with the finger kinesiology. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at old patterns and how they affect you and what they actually ultimately cause you to believe about yourself. And this is where the insidiousness is of it. Because of a certain sequence of events, you start recreating certain patterns. And it's just stuff that's created, and you don't have to suffer it. You can let it go. And the more and the more, one of the hardest people to read for are Buddhists, who spend a lot of time meditating because they're not generating all kinds of stuff for you to work with. They're just right there in the moment.
That would be an interesting reading to have.
That would be a cool reading.
Yeah.
I've done it. I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a while, and it's a whole different realm of energy.
I can only imagine. And from my side, when I try to think about what's coming up for people in the next week, much like everybody else, they're telling people to slow down. Because I became so ingrained in corporate America for a while, I would tell people, if you have a to-do list for the next week, try to stick to it. Try not to ad-lib a whole lot. Pay attention, because you are going to be offered new opportunities that are going to be coming up through your week. There's going to be new things that are going to be presented. There's going to be new things that you're going to be excited about. But just because you're excited about a new venture, don't go jumping off the bridge. Take the time, realize, do your educated research on it, pay attention. And very much, as everybody else said, you got to slow down a little, just a little. It's that 2 mile an hour faster or slower that either puts you in the accident or not. Right. It's a very difficult. Just feel. When you feel that you need to do something, do it. And if your gut feeling is telling you that doesn't feel right, by all means, don't. Well, I tell you what, guys, we're going to go ahead. It has been an interesting evening. There is no doubt about it. Tammy, if you would just real quick, tell me again when the eclipses are coming.
Okay, July 2nd is the total solar eclipse, 10 degrees Cancer, and July 16th is the partial lunar, 24 degrees Capricorn.
Now, just real quick, more to refresh my brain than anything. Tell me the difference of the two.
The solar is when the sun and the moon are together, and
Right.
it's like Malcolm. The beginning, it's both the beginning and an ending of a cycle.
Okay.
You know, brand new. Any possibility is open to you because the sun and the moon are together. So it's new beginnings, new beginnings. And like you said, write things down. Write down your to-do list because that's how you manifest things. At that time, putting that to-do list out. And then the lunar is when the energy reaches its peak. And like Malcolm said, everything is illuminated. So you're going to plant some seeds with the solar, and you're going to actually see what you've missed or see any adjustments you need to make. That you're going to consolidate everything at the lunar, like the full moon, super full moon.
That's interesting. And one of these days, I'm going to have to sit down and have a conversation with you about all of that. Well, everybody that's in the chat room, I really appreciate you joining this evening. For the people that are going to be listening on the podcast, you can check us out. And again, as our cast of people that we have is starting to grow, everybody has a bio on our homepage of www.terraturas.com. And you can click on the panel members and view everybody's bio, and then a way to link to them directly. Fairly soon we are going to be offering schedules that you'll be able to choose a schedule and connect with people if you want to have a reading done with our panel members. But also you can check us out here on Facebook at /Terra Turas. You can check us out on YouTube. As soon as we get over 100 subscribers or people to click on that they like a subscription on YouTube, we'll be able to rename our channel. But if you look on YouTube for Terra Turas, you'll be able to see all of our past video shows, as well as a couple of shows that we've all done in between. And again, we're going to be coming back next week. We'll be adding another new person and another new viewpoint. Everybody, thank you for joining this evening. It has been, for me, it's been educational. I really appreciate it.
I agree. Thank you, Tammy, very much, because this is all clear as mud to me usually. See, Malcolm, she speaks in English, our English.
Yes, she translates it Astro speak into English, and thank you for that.
We've had a lot of people that talk about her saying, she speaks English, and it's like,
yeah, speak English.
She really does. All right, for all of everybody here, we will see you again next week on another episode of Terra Turas. Until then, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.